they ready? Okay. Julie is ready also.
You may start.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Kent City Council Committee as a whole. We're going to get started here today. I'm going to ask Kim to do roll call, please.
Thank you. Council President Corr, Councilmember Boyce,
Yep.
Councilmember Boyd,
Here.
Councilmember Fincher, here. Councilmember Larmer,
Here.
Councilmember Michaud,
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have, what is it? 5 items on our agenda tonight here. On item number 3, Pat, any changes to the agenda? No changes. Council member, are we good? Seeing none, I'm asking for a motion for agenda, please. Approval?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on to item number 4, which is department presentation, and the first one is the approval of the minutes from March 18th. Ask for a motion, please.
Move to approve the minutes from March 18th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We'll move on to item 4B, payment of the bills. Ask for a motion, please.
Move to pay the bills.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to Park, and I'm going to ask Councilmember Michaud to discuss what we have on the agenda for Parks today.
All right, thank you so much, Councilmember Boyce. We have 4 action items this evening, and up first we have our Parks Director, Julie Parascandola, to talk about the Greater Kent Historical Society.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Before I get started, I did want to shout out Kyle Woods. Want to just wave for me, Kyle? Kyle is our new Park Planning and Development Manager in the Parks Division, so he'll be the new lead over improving our parks. So I just wanted you to meet him real fast.
Okay.
And then I'm here today to talk about the updated MOU agreement with the Greater Kent Historic Society and the City of Kent. And we'll be asking the council towards the end of the presentation for approval to pass through the new agreement. So just a heads up that the Historic Society has hired their new executive director, which is really exciting. We are trying to get them on a future workshop where they're going to come and present last year's achievements, let you meet the new executive director. And so I know they're here with us today in spirit. So just backing up a little bit on the partnership here, the city has had a long time relationship with the Historic Society spanning all the way back to 1992 and have had a existing museum lease and service agreement that was enacted in 2002 and then has been literally what has somewhat been governing our relationship ever since. Section 2748010 of the Revised Code of Washington does allow municipalities to partner with these types of museums and organizations to deliver heritage and different types of history and culture programs. They are, for the most part, the repository of retaining and stewarding Kent's history. To be clear, and I'll talk about this later, most of the city departments manage their own like historical records and properties and things like that, but all the interesting stories and the cultures and artifacts and all that stuff is really for the Kent Historic Society. So the city has partnered with them to do that type of work for us on top of delivering programs and telling the story of Kent. And the city has partnered, and we've been working with them probably, I'm going to say probably a year. I started with Dillon High and then finished with both Dave Johnson and Eileen Lamphere, who are the president and vice president, and finished up the negotiations. So there's been an on and off process with us now for a while. And we do have now a shared commitment towards each other, and I'm going to tell you what we're doing here. So the first thing is why do we care? I mean, we really had an MOU that really could have just kind of lasted forever. The challenge is we have both evolved over 20 years. It's a 20-year-old agreement. There was a lot of vagueness on roles and responsibilities, and we wanted to be able to create a new path forward that when our future selves are gone, this agreement is very clear on who does what and where. And so that took a revitalization of the agreement. So we wanted to really better define roles and responsibilities, funding mechanisms, all those good things. We definitely collaborated over the years, over the last year, and then the Historic Society approved this agreement subject to council approval at their last meeting on March 13th. So they are also all in on the future of our partnership as well. Looking at the overview of the new agreement, we did admittedly start with redlining the old agreement, and that turned out to be extremely cumbersome. We had to just scrap it and start over, so definite appreciation to the legal department for helping us rebuild this whole agreement from scratch. The property, we are going to continue. So the Historic Society, as you all know, operates out of the Brighter House right off of Smith across from Earthworks and kind of near the Senior Center. They will continue to use that space rent-free. We do not charge rent in lieu of them operating that museum and doing all of the programming for us. The initial term on this agreement is for 15 years, and then you have the option for 3 5-year extensions. So this could be all the way up to a 30-year agreement and commitment with each other. One of the things we realized and we wanted to build in is this agreement was the old agreement for 20 years, and it really wasn't updated ever with times and changing. And so the new agreement builds in the requirement to review and to edit, and especially on every renewal to revalidate that all of the assumptions and everything is still the same. And then it also, because we are allowing this as a rent-free space, we have to identify usage requirements where we are making sure they are using it for a public museum. It has to be public accessible, and so on. The financial commitment, this is easy. There really is no change. It was just outlining it a little bit better on how this works. So the city has and will continue to operate and provide an annual operating subsidy, and that helps go towards staffing of their executive director. The rest of their workforce is mostly volunteer-based. We currently, in the 2025 budget, we have about $109,200. That grows incrementally with the city's budget as it grows, usually about 2% per year. That funding is already included in our adopted 25-26. We renew that commitment every 2 years when the council adopts the budget. And then to just clarify, we still own the grounds and the buildings, so we are actively involved from the park maintenance and the facilities operations division, and do still work out there and do to the tune around 40 to 50,000. We track that annually, so we know what our contribution is versus theirs, and we check that as we go forward. This MOU does not create any new financial mandates or commitments on the city side. We're just relocking what we've done existing. One of the things that we did add in the new MOU is with the passage of the Doors Open Arts funding, the museums can qualify now for a larger sustainable bucket of funding. The Historic Society did submit for grants and were successful in getting some capital grants. They're now working on the sustainable side. So we put in their clause on, hey, if you are successful, because municipalities are not with that funding, you'll hear that some conversation with Rhonda later. If they suddenly get a huge sustainable grant, they have to notify us, and then we have to kind of relook at, okay, what are you doing with that, and what are we still doing? So we're making sure we're being strategic on our investment with them as we're moving forward. This agreement solidifies a little bit more marketing and engagement help. They are an extension of our programming, kind of, it's just historic and different things on their programming side. So we've already done some of this. We're just memorializing an agreement where they're more directly connected with Haley Elliott, who's our marketing engagement coordinator. We provide them advertisement space in our rec guide that goes out 3 times a year. They already existingly use Kent Park's newsletter and the mayor's newsletter, which is a huge reach. And then all of their events and can go on our city's website. And then, of course, we support the Historic Kent event that they put on, which is a pretty big event that really supports history in our city. Maintenance and operations, as I mentioned earlier, we have responsibilities. It's somewhat of a dual role. We take care of the outer shell and some of the major infrastructure of the buildings. They take care of, custodial and mowing and things like, landscape, things like that. So you'll see in the agreement, we have outlined who plays what role when it comes to that and who provides what, who pays for what utilities, all that good stuff. The society handles most of their routine daily things. We're more the preventative and the making sure our asset is still solid. Museum operations and public programming. There is a requirement. The Historic Society does help the city in identifying our representative as a special commissioner to the King County Landmark Commission. So currently that position is filled by Linda Martinez. When that new renewal comes up, the Historic Society helps advise the mayor and whoever, and the council appoints that. The agreement requires the museum to be open at least a minimum of 15 hours a week. They are open more than that, but that's the minimum that we're allowing, so you can't just close. They are required to offer at least one. They do a ton of different tours, community events. They do all of their signage, interpretive, that's all on them. Their programming will continue to advance. As you know, we did adopt their strategic plan a while back, their historic plan, and that has a lot of different things when you get into schools and camps and things, so they do have a lot of opportunity coming forward. This agreement also allows, if they want to program in a different facility, that we will offer a discount if it's affiliated directly with the Historic Society, and so that's also in this agreement. Stewardship of collections is just important for council to understand when they have a full collections management plan, and collections are like artifacts. They're just tell the story and the history of Kent. The old fishing pole, that's an artifact, part of a larger collection. The Historic Society, per their bylaws, owns those collections. This agreement gives the city first right. Skip ahead 15 years, if something happens with the Historic Society, the city does have the right to go in there as first rights to maybe obtain some of those collections if they're important to Kent's history and so on. Right now, the Historic Society is the steward of those collections. They are maintaining those collections at a museum best practice standard. That's something we put in place with them a while back when we went through the work with the consultant. They can transfer and lend their own things, kind of moving back for us. They can also lend things to the city if we want to present or do something at the city. That's their role. And then they are just, in general, the historian. There's a lot of confusion sometimes on the word historian. That's usually a staff role that just kind of works on that. But they are considered the society, and they are the historian of a lot of things that we're working on. And then finally, governance and accountability. Obviously, they're a city partner of ours, and so everything, they have their own operating bylaws. They're obviously a 501c3, so they have their own types of structures on what they do. The city does not play a role in their hiring, their firing, their policy development, things like that. They are a standalone organization. They do appoint their own executive director, and they do have to submit an annual report. We tried to get them in first quarter this year, but President fell ill, so that's why we're trying to reschedule. And then they're also required to present updates at the end of second quarter as well. So first quarter, they send us their report of how they did the prior year and did they meet their minimums and all the requirements. Then we send out our operating subsidy payment to them. Quarter two is when they come to council and they present all of their things. So we're not just paying because they send us an invoice. They have to show us their outputs and their performance, which you'll see next time they come and present. And so currently right now, what we think about this agreement, it really modernizes our partnership with the society, and it really reflects our current operations and mutual goals on this one. It also strengthens our foundation and commitment. This is a 90% volunteer base, and there's a lot of people putting a lot of effort in, and so this shows joint commitment to each other. And so obviously myself and staff are recommending that the council approve this MOU, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Julie. Are there any questions? Councilmember Fincher, are you good?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, all right, I will read the motion then. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the lease and operating agreement with the Greater Kent Historical Society, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, up next, we have Tona to talk about an energy audit contract.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Tona Cow. I'm the new facility superintendent for City of Kent. I am very new. I started in November 2024, so I'm very excited to be here. This is my first council meeting.
Welcome.
I'm here to present on two different motions. The first motion would be to accept grant funds from the Association of Washington Cities grant program for the amount of $416,800 to conduct energy audits. And the second motion would be for the professional services agreement with the Sazan Group to start the project. I want to provide some background on the energy audit program and how we will be using the grant funding to be in compliance with the Clean Buildings Act. The grant was awarded to City of Kent on March 6, 2025, and the grant is to perform energy audits for city-owned buildings. The project must be completed by May 31st, 2025 per the grant requirements. So it's a very short turnaround time. What is the Clean Buildings Performance Standard? Washington was the first state to enact a Clean Buildings Act, which is House Bill 1257. The Clean Buildings Act was signed into law into May 2019. For the Clean Buildings Act, we require buildings to meet specific energy use intensity, EUI targets. You can calculate energy use intensity by dividing a building's total energy consumed in a year, that includes gas and electricity, by its total gross square feet. There are penalties for non-compliance. Fines can be up to $5,000 annually. So it is imperative that we meet compliance. Why do we need this grant funding? Well, after reviewing the energy use intensity of all city facilities, we identified 4 key buildings that require ASHRAE Level 2 energy audits for Tier 1 buildings. These audits will help us meet compliance deadlines and lower operational energy costs. The grant funding will cover audits for the following locations: Shower Center, and that needs to be compliant by June 1st, 2027. Kent Commons, that needs to be compliant by June 1st, 2028. The Administrative Services Building, that needs to be compliant by June 1st, 2028. City Hall Campus, which includes Centennial Center, City Hall, and Police Headquarters, and that needs to be compliant by June 1st, 2027. The reason why we actually lumped it in as a campus, because there's only 1 meter for the entire campus that measures the energy consumption there. The grant funding will also help us comply with the Washington State Clean Building Performance Standard, which is mandatory. And we are also able, with the grant funding, we're also able to identify ways to lower operational energy costs. What is an ASHRAE Level 2 audit? So ASHRAE stands for American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. ASHRAE is actually a standardization and its guidelines related to heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, refrigeration, and indoor air quality. An ASHRAE Level 2 audit involves a detailed evaluation of a facility's energy usage. It includes on-site assessments of HVAC, lighting, plug loads, as well as the development of cost-effective energy efficiency measures. The goal is to identify opportunities for energy savings and ensure compliance with state regulations. What are the next steps? The Association of Washington Cities grant and Sasan contract is on the consent agenda tonight due to the short time frame to complete the work. The work needs to be completed by May 31st, 2025, so it's a very short window. We need to sign the Association of Washington Cities subgrant agreement, and then we need to sign the Sasan contract. So once the Sasan contract is signed, the project can start. We'll gather and review data, as-builts, energy usage data. We'll do site assessments at 4 of the locations. We'll do analysis and reporting, and that's on Energy Star. And then we will produce final audit reports for all those locations. From the findings of the final audit reports, we may come back to council if significant work needs to be done to make us compliant. With Centennial Center and the Administrative Services Building, we will work any needed upgrades into those projects. Any questions from council members?
Thank you so
Yes.
much. Oh, go ahead. Councilmember Boyce.
Councilmember Boyce?
Sure, okay. So you have to be compliance by May? I said they May 31st, was it? Or is it
So
May 31st?
the work needs to be completed, the energy audits need to be completed by May 31st, per the grant requirement.
For the requirement.
That's correct.
Yeah, not compliance, just the
Okay,
audit.
okay.
So compliance is
Yeah.
different. So
Okay.
in terms of, let me go back. Whoops, that didn't go. Let me go back to, can we go back to the slides where it had listed the locations? Yes. So compliance dates are right there. Showware Center compliance by June 1st, 2027. Kent Commons, June 1st, 2028. Administrative Services Building, June 1st, 2028. City Hall, June 1st, 2027. So those are the compliance dates.
But the audit is, okay, it needs to be
That's
done.
correct. So the audit, energy audits is the work that we're going to be doing.
Can you get, that seems like a lot of work. Is that a lot of work with that less than 90 days?
I knew you were going to ask that question. It is actually, it is a very tight schedule, but we are able to meet the completion date. And so obviously, we'll do, council meeting, route AWC contract, route Sasan contract by 4/3. We will have a kickoff meeting with the city. That's 4/4. Review energy data. We'll do 4/3 to 4/14. As-built review, 4/3 to 4/14. And then we'll do the site visits, which will start in 4/15 to 4/18. Showware Center, Admin Services Building, Kent Commons, City Hall. We'll do an analysis and reporting from 4/21 to 5/26. And we will have final audit reports finished by 5/26.
Is this all internal staff doing this work, or do you have an
So the
outsource?
Sasan consultant, that's our consultant that we're using.
Okay.
Who's going to be collecting the data and analyzing the data and also providing us reports.
But who's going to be doing the work, though?
So they'll be working with me.
Okay.
And other staff to
Okay.
gather that data.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilman Michelle.
Yep. Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Councilmember Michaud. Question, so with the plan to move of City Hall, is this something that we have to do with buildings on a regular basis? Like, will we need to do this on the new building?
In terms of ASB, so ASB is already on the list. The Admin Services Building is actually on the list, and we will be
Oh,
compliant.
sorry, gotcha, okay,
So yes, we will be doing that on the new building.
gotcha, okay, thank you. And then are we required, like, if we're going to potentially be doing something else with these buildings, or two of the buildings on the on the campus here, what happens to our compliance requirement at that point?
Oh, you mean our construction projects for Centennial Center? And
No,
City
for
Hall?
City Hall campus, if we end up vacating these buildings in favor of the new one, are we still required to meet the compliance by 2027? Like if we're,
Well, if we're vacated, You mean if we vacate
So
City Hall?
we're off the hook for anything
Yep,
when we vacate?
yes.
Okay,
So it's for a building that we are in.
okay. That
If
makes,
we're no longer in the building,
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Larmer? Sorry, Troutner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How does Keyhawk fit into this? Is this considered in compliance, or is it not the type of tier that we're looking at?
well, Keyhawk is under construction. So right now, there's nothing to measure. There's no energy data or anything. Later on in the future, we'll probably do that, but currently it's still under construction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other, okay, go ahead.
That brings up
Councilmember Larmer?
Sorry, that brings up one more question for me. On the Administration Services Building, how do we measure we will not be in there by May 31st, so how do we measure the energy consumption?
So that's a very good question. So we're going to be measuring in terms of the energy consumption for that building. So they're going to be conducting quite a few assessments in that building. So we'll be doing an HVAC systems analysis there, chillers, boilers, control systems. We'll be doing lighting systems evaluation, plug loads, water heating. So even though we're not in the building, everything is still currently running. So we can measure that. And these are the assessments that they're going to run through.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
Hey, you know your stuff. Welcome to the team.
Oh, thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. So
Thank you
so-
very much. I'm very
Thank you
excited.
so much. I can tell you're
to be
very,
part of the team.
very passionate about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Fincher, do you have any questions?
I was just wondering, we have to pay for the initial study of City Hall, even though we don't plan on being there in 2027, because we're there now, right?
Can you repeat that
We have
question?
that done by May?
Repeat your question, please.
Okay, I'm wondering, we don't plan on being in City Hall in 2027. So with that being said, we're paying now for, part of what we're paying for, the Cezanne Company is with City Hall, correct? So is that because it is currently occupied that we have to do that? Or could we, okay,
City Hall campus. So in terms of City Hall campus encompasses, Tendo Center, City Hall, and Police HQ. And actually, it's based on the EUI as well as the square footage. So that total, because we're combining all three because of the 1 meter for the entire campus, which makes up 122,600 square feet, which fits in the tier 1.
okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so on our agenda, I actually have D, which is first, which is the audit contract.
Yes, so it should be, so the AWC grant and then
Okay.
this is on contract.
Pat, do I follow the agenda?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we will do the grant first. So we're going to switch those and then do the audit contract.
Okay.
So that makes more sense. Okay. I move to authorize the mayor to accept grant funds from the Association of Washington Cities in the amount of $416,800 to conduct energy audits of selected city facilities, amend the budget, authorize expenditure of the grant funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and none opposed, and so the motion passes. Okay,
Thank you.
and now I move to authorize the mayor to sign the professional services agreement with Cezanne Group Incorporated, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you so much. All right, our last item on parks, we have Rhonda here to talk about a For-Culture grant.
Hello, good afternoon, council members. I'm very pleased to be here to share the good news of a grant that we received from For Culture, which is our King County arts organization. This is a sustained support arts grant. It's a grant that we consistently receive. We've been receiving it annually for many years. It's funding for the day-to-day operations of arts organizations in King County. The big difference this year is the amount has gone up quite significantly. In the past, our annual amounts were about $17,000, $18,000. And this year, we received $72,000 annually for a total of 3 years. So years 25, 26, and 27 for a total of $216,000. The contracts, they're breaking it into 2 different contracts. So there's a contract we have now for just the 2025 funding of $72,000, and then we'll have 1 contract for 26, 27 for the remainder of that amount. This funding comes from the lodging tax funding in King County. That was the money that For Culture previously relied on to fund arts organizations and projects throughout the county. As Julie Periscindola mentioned, there is new funding that For Culture is administering now called Doors Open. Money is generated through a 0.1% sales tax for arts, culture, history, and science throughout the county. And that money is we're not eligible as a municipal arts organization. Only nonprofits are available for that funding. But because that funding has opened up a new source for a lot of the other organizations throughout the county, that has freed up some of the lodging tax money so that they can make these larger awards to the organizations, the arts commissions and arts councils that are associated with municipal governments, which is great news because for many of the suburban and rural organizations throughout King County, we're often the primary, if not only, organization in those communities offering arts and cultural programming. So it's, I'm happy. I've been a little nervous as all the Doors Open legislation was going through that we would not be eligible, and was hearing over and over that it would turn out okay, that we would have this increase from lodging tax, and it does look like they're making that promise whole for us. So so we're just asking you to accept the grant and authorize the signing of the contract and the expenditures. And primarily, we use this money towards our performing arts programs, so summer concert series, spotlight series. The increase is going to be very helpful for us to just keep pace with the increased costs of touring and presenting performing arts events. And then we are also moving our Thursdays at the Lake summer concerts this year from Lake Meridian to Morro Meadows Park, and we're kind of doing a big push to have a little bit bigger profile groups and to really kind of enhance that portion of our summer concert series. So this will help with that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyce.
So Lake Meridian is all going to be shifted to, you didn't do like a 50-50 split, or just, and the reason why you just moving from one to the
We're
other?
shifting it all. So we have, our summer concerts is made up of 2 separate series.
Okay.
We have the concerts for families and kids, and those are up at West Fenwick Park on Wednesday afternoons. And then we have our Thursday evening concerts. Those have historically been at Lake Meridian. We are giving it a try this year to move them to Morro Meadows for a number of reasons. Lake Meridian is a really great place for concerts because it's beautiful.
Right.
But that's about it. The parking is really difficult. We've had to run a shuttle for many years, and we've had a lot of feedback from our concert goers and people who don't come to concerts that is a barrier. They really don't like that idea of having to like go to a parking lot off-site and get on a shuttle and kind of be tied to that. Morro Meadows, as you know, has been recently refreshed. There's that big, huge, beautiful field. So we're going to have our new mobile stage out there. We have the church parking lot. We have the park parking lot, some overflow possibly at the Y if needed, although we're working to make sure that their parking is, for their users as well. And just a lot better amenities.
It'll be good. I was thinking about the parking, but I forgot about the church and then the Y. If you could work something out with the Y, that'll be great. So
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean,
Yeah,
that'll
so
be
we're
good.
looking forward to it.
Give it a
We're
try.
gonna give it a try and see how it goes. I've heard folks are pretty excited about it, and like I said, we've made an effort. We're gonna have some food trucks, couple food trucks. Made an effort to kind of increase the visibility of some of the artists. So I think we're gonna have a great.
And how you gonna, for many years about Lake Meridian, so that's a change of communication? Have you thought about?
Yes, I'm working with our parks marketing staff and our communications team, and we'll definitely have a whole, communications marketing around the change.
Thank you. We got a lot of money to play with this year. That's good.
Yes, congratulations on getting that money. I think we'll need to have ongoing conversations about the venue change for the concerts.
Yeah.
Any other questions about this grant? Councilmember Fincher, are you good?
I'm good. I actually mentioned the venue change in my last report, so I'm good.
The motion. I move to accept grant funds from Four Cultures Sustained Support Program in the amount of $216,000 to support existing Kent Parks cultural programs, amend the budget, authorize expenditure of the grant funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Parks Director and City Attorney.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you so much, Rhonda. All right, and back to you, Councilmember Boyce.
Hey, thank you, Councilmember Michaud. We're going to move on to Public Works. Councilmember Fincher is normally, she is the chair for Public Works, but Marley, Councilmember Larmer, and Bud is going to take care of the two motions. So G is going to be Councilmember Larmer, please.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Okay, so tonight we have an info only. It's the 2025 WASDOT National Highway System Asset Management Program Grant Opportunity, and with Carla Maloney here with us.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here today. My name is Carla Maloney, and I'm the Public Works Design Engineering Manager. I am here today to share with you about this grant opportunity. So this last February, WashDOT issued a notice of funding opportunity for their National State Highway System Preservation Program. This program is funded with federal funds from the Federal Highway Administration. This may sound a little bit familiar, as we successfully received a grant in 2023 from this same program. And that location is on 64th Avenue South and West James Street between Meeker and Washington Avenue. That project is currently in design, and we're going to have that project go to construction here next summer, so we're excited for that. This grant cycle, thank you. This grant cycle, our team has identified two different roadway segments. The first segment, which you see here, is on James Street. And the location that we're looking at is between, segment for the grant would be between Washington Avenue and Central Avenue North. So it's that entire segment, and you're seeing the 167 bridge there, and then the railroads are behind us if you're looking at this to the east. There's been some minor preservation work that has gone on over the years. You can see that. However, the last major restorative pavement work that we have done was back actually in the early teens, so over 10 years ago. The next segment is on 116th Avenue Southeast from the Southeast 274th area to Kent Kangley, which is 516. The last major restorative pavement work that was done along this section was done in 2000. We did do some work along this route further to the south and to the west a few years ago when we did pavement repairs and chip seals. So this is going to tie into where the ending of that work is and then taking it all the way on up to Kent Kangley. So, oops, sorry, back. So due to the existing conditions, which you've seen here, and I'm sure many of you are familiar by driving along these roads, you can tell that there has been a fair amount of restorative efforts that we've done. Our maintenance crews have gone out there, they've done crack sealing work, and they've done other pothole repair work and whatnot. But because they are in the condition that they are, we think that these segments will score pretty well in this grant. The good news is with this grant is if we do receive money for either one of these locations, and hopefully both, the grant would cover 100% of eligible design and construction expenses. So we're working on preparing our grant applications right now, and we are going to be submitting them to WashDOT on April the 11th. Are there any questions?
I do. Given these are federal funds, are we hearing, do you have any concerns about this actually being paid out or any cuts in this programming?
Through the grapevine, we have not heard any changes. And so the best information we have is the same information you have, which is what you're hearing in the news.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, Molly, this is a little different, but I would be thinking about road replacement. We got 512, I guess it's Central and Smith. It's like one of the worst intersections with bumps, and it's like been so bad forever. And that's a process you go to WashDOT for to get that road replaced, or?
So the state routes the pavement is managed by WashDOT.
Okay.
And so it is their responsibility to make sure that the conditions of that roadway segment is being addressed. Our responsibility is if we receive any feedback, we provide that information to WashDOT. However, since they have resources allocated for that, would it make sense for us to, go in and do work on those intersections?
Probably not, but how can we get them to realize how bad that intersection is?
I think it's pretty much the same with any type of government. The more people call, the more people make statements, the more likely work is going to happen.
Chad got more answers. Slightly different, Chad, but that road has just been pathetic for some time.
Carla covered it, which is the state's responsible for the pavement on the state routes, 515, 516, 169. But, Highway 99. That intersection, though, through the Rapid Right Eye project is going to be getting redone here, probably not this summer, but next. Okay. So we have continued to give them feedback on its condition because we've been watching it. It's pretty bad through there.
Yeah, that's bad. Okay, good. Thank you.
Any further questions?
No further questions. So thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Okay, that was the information only. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item H, and Councilmember Boyd.
Yes. Okay, next on our agenda, we are talking about the Water Resource Inventory Area 8, the interlocal agreement, and here to present is Mike Mactusis.
Mactusis, thank you.
Mactusis, okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Mike Mactusis, I'm the Environmental Engineering Manager for the city. And good afternoon, council members, and I'm happy to be able, I combined the presentations for the RIA 8 and RIA 9 because there's so much overlap, but they are separate interlocal agreements. So I'll be talking through the salmon recovery context, the big picture of how we deal with the salmon recovery and the history leading up to today. The salmon habitat plans, there's one for each of the watersheds. The RIA 8 is the Cedar, Lake Washington, Sammamish River watershed, and then RIA 9 is the Green River watershed. And then I'll talk about the ILAs, the history of how the ILAs that we've had. This is will be the fourth iteration of these ILAs that will be up for your consideration today. And then just what we've been able to accomplish under the previous ILAs. So a long-term history, the chart on the right shows the decrease in the salmon population, the natural salmon population in the Chinook in the Puget Sound watershed, leading all the way back from the time that more of the European immigration into the area and all of the other people moving into it. And you can see the salmon kind of bottoming out a few decades ago, and I'll get into a little more detail on what's been happening since then, since we've really started doing some more detailed counts and science on what the salmon need and how to respond to that. But the way that the framework is handled is that when the Chinook were listed under the Endangered Species Act, that's a federal act. The way the local agencies responded to that was we took the opportunity to try and handle that locally rather than having the federal government come in and dictate to us how we were going to respond to that. So you have NOAA Fisheries, kind of the overarching implementation of the Endangered Species Act, but that's locally it's handled through the state, through the Governor's Salmon Recovery Office, which has split the state up into 8 regions, of which Kent is part of the Puget Sound region. And then the Puget Sound region, and you can see on the right side, is broken up into all the individual watersheds. And the city of Kent participates in 2 of those, which is the RIAs 8 and 9 that I talked about, which are combined they're called one lead entity, but they're separate watersheds. So it's a real convoluted way that the things that we have to go through to get things done. And there's RIA 8 and RIA 9. The one on the north, on the upper and north is Cedar River, and then the south end is the Green River. So you get down into the more local level, and the map on the left is the Cedar River watershed. They're both very long and linear watersheds. If you look on the star is where our Clark Springs watershed is on the left map. That is our entire participation in RIA 8. So it is our most important water supply. So it is very important to us. But as part of the entire RIA 8, which includes all the way from the Puget Sound through the Ship Canal, the Ballard Locks, all the way up Lake Washington, and then the Cedar River, every fish that comes up past and through the Clark Springs water supply comes through the Ballard Locks and through Lake Washington. So they've been out in the ocean for a few years, and they come and they make this journey up through all of that to get up into Rock Creek, where our water supply is. And then in the right map is the Green River watershed, and we're a much bigger portion of that with the city individually, as well as a partner with Tacoma Public Utilities, which has the Howard Hanson Dam, which is just at the downstream end of that big, large green area on the right side of that right map, which is going to be opened up to fish for the first time in over 100 years when the Corps of Engineers completes their fish passage project, which is still on schedule for 2030. They're still scheduling to start construction this year. So there are salmon habitat plans for each of those. They were each started in 2005 to 2006, and they each have been updated one time since then. They have status assessments for each of the watersheds, taking into account the science of, like I mentioned, going through the Ballard Locks, through Lake Washington, the temperatures, the predators, where they hang out, where they move through quickly, and then they both set goals, strategies, and then capital projects, which are the on-the-ground things, which we've been involved in very heavily in the Cedar River watershed as part of our habitat conservation plan for the Clark Springs water supply, and then in the Green River as part of our levees setback, working with the flood control district and partnering with the RIA and incorporating all of our multiple benefits with the businesses, the recreation, as well as the flood protection and the habitat and the water quality. And then how do we adapt to that? Monitoring and adaptive management. So we're learning things as we go. In some ways, it's a big experiment trying to take these wild animals that are endangered and sending them through areas where we have, where we're building rockets and we have Amazon warehouses and we have, millions of people living, and trying to incorporate both the wild and a very heavily urban environment successfully. So these charts, the one on the left is the Cedar River, and the one on the right is the Green River, are numbers of natural Chinook that are coming back up the river after they've gone out to the ocean and come back. And so you can see, along with some of the goals that were set as part of the habitat plans that have been adopted by the city, as well as all the cities within the 2 watersheds. So you can see the Cedar River is suffering a bit more. It has not recovered, and we have seen that with the Rock Creek numbers that we do salmon surveys every 4 years as part of our habitat conservation plan for the Clark Springs water supply, and we're seeing the same numbers that they're seeing at the Cedar, that the fish are just not bouncing back yet. So we're still working on that. We've done quite a bit of habitat enhancement upstream and downstream of our water supply, but still working on getting the numbers to bounce back. And the Green River has been a bit of a different story. You can see, 10 years ago, so you can see the numbers really bottomed out very low. Down 1 year, I believe it was below 100 Chinook came back. But that has been coming up. We've hit our preliminary goals the last 7 of the last 10 years. And hopefully, and then the long-term goals are much higher, up to 27,000 is the goal to have come back. And so we hopefully will start seeing that after the Howard Hanson Dam gets opened up and we're able to open up that entire upper watershed where we can get it above the 2,000 level and start getting it up into the 10s to 20,000s. But that is when you'll see the real benefit of the projects that we've been working on down here in the city, where we give the fish places to rest and hang out, like right now, while the river is up from the rain we've had lately. The fish are out there. They're in the side channels that we've built. King County has been doing, and this is through the interlocals, King County has been doing studies and surveys on where the fish are going, where they're hanging out. So when the river comes up, they go into these side channels and they stay there until the river comes back down. So the goal is to keep that water up. Once the water goes back down, then they start moving downstream down into Elliott Bay and they don't come back. So we want to keep them in the side channels as long as possible because that increases their chances of survival by tenfold and more. So the ILAs, the initial ILA was 2001. That was a 5-year ILA just to set up the first habitat plan. And then since then, we've had 2 10-year ILAs, 2007 to 2015, and then 2016 to 2025. So the current ILA expires at the end of this year. So this proposal is for a 10-year ILA from 2026 to 2035. And that's it. There have been the iteration that's in the packet. There have been quite a few nomenclature changes and definition changes, but the structure is staying the same. There's a management forum or management committee for each of the watersheds, and then as well as the forum, a watershed ecosystem forum in RIA 9, and then the Salmon Recovery Council in RIA 8. Councilmember Troutner is the co-chair of the RIA 9 Watershed Ecosystem Forum, as well as the vice chair of the management committee, and then I have been the staff alternate for RIA 8. So if there's any interest in an elected on RIA 8, I know it's a very small part of what we do, but there is a position open, but I'm happy to continue to staff the meetings and participate in that. So that's the ILAs set up the funding mechanism, they set up the governance structure, work plans and budgets and all of those things. And then, like I mentioned, those have the definitions have changed and the processes have changed a little bit, but and they've really stayed the same over the long term. So for 2025, the work plan is continuing with the watershed coordination. There are a lot of cities in both of these watersheds. They're the most urbanized watersheds in the entire state by far. So there's a coordinating between the 16 cities plus King County in RIA 9, and then I believe there's 27 cities in RIA 8, and there's some overlap of those, like we're in both, Seattle is in both, and the city of Renton also is in both. But there's a lot of cities, coordination with the region and the state, which also participate, but not as funding members. And then setting up a legislative coordination, and then the project coordination and the science and prioritizing grants and which projects those go to. And then, like I mentioned, how do we adapt? As you know, the science comes back and tells us things of what's working and what's not working, then we adapt to that for the future projects. So funding for this coming year. So for RIA 8, the city's the contribution for the city this year is only $246, and that's set up by the average of the population, assessed value, and square footage. for those. So so you average those by the jurisdictions that participate. And then in RIA 9, our contribution is $76,000 for this year out of $606,000 total. The city, over the last 10 years, has gotten $8.8 million in grants. And that does not include some of the other grants that we've been able to leverage, such as for the Downey Farmstead Floodplains by Design grant, which was really the large grant that finished that, which came through the Department of Ecology but did not go through the RIA. That was another $3.5 million. So over the last 10 years, the grants associated with the RIA and leveraged by the RIA have been upwards of $12 million over the last 10 years. And we have two large projects that are in progress now. The Boeing Rock Restoration Project, which is almost a mile long, and then the Lower Russell Habitat Area A, which is a large back channel. And both of those, we just received a $1.2 million total between those two over the last year to push us into a preliminary design on those. So those are both active. And so those will be coming through the future. The grants, and you can see the grants, the funding for this year, $6.2 million total for RIA 8 and $5.6 million for RIA 9 that get distributed among all the applicants that they're reviewing right now. A lot of accomplishments. RIA 8 over the last 9 years now, $38 million awarded in grants, so quite a bit of money going into that. A lot of levees removed or setback, acres of floodplain reconnected, and that's really what the salmon need, is just to try and give them a little bit of buffer between the rivers and the lakes and what they're doing and the urban environment. So there's some mixing with some of the recreational areas, the parks and things, but then there's separation also with some of the floodplain that's being reconnected and the wood that's being added into the river systems. And then RIA 9, over the last 25 years, over $200 million in leveraged investments. So some of that, and you can see the picture on the right, is the Lower Russell project, which is in Kent. That was just under 1.5 miles of river, which the levee was set back. The Van Dorens Park was rebuilt, and a lot of habitat. You can see some of the habitat right along the river, which was put in and has been planted since then and is doing very well. So over 500 acres revegetated and a lot more to come. And that is it.
Well, you did a good job. I think you covered both of those.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, John.
So do we have any questions for Mike? Anybody?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. I think this is a great reminder of all the work that we are doing here in Kent. I think sometimes we forget about it. So this is a great reminder of all the work that we are doing to protect salmon habitat along the Green River in our city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mike? Okay, at this time, I'd like to make a motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement for Water Resource Inventory Area 8, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes. And seeing how you covered both, we're going to go over to the Water Resource Inventory Area 9 interlocal agreement authorized. Okay, I'd like to make the motion that I move to authorize the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement for Water Resource Inventory Area 9, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This motion also passes.
Hey, all righty. Thank you, Mike. Good job as
you,
usual.
Mike.
Appreciate it. Okay, that ends our meeting here for today for the committee as a whole. So we're going to take a break, and we resume at 5:15. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna get started here. We're gonna kick off our Kent City Council workshop. Today's Tuesday, April 1st. We got two items on our agenda tonight. One is the draft ADA transition plan, and then the second one is to meet me on Meeker update. So, Eric Preston, please.
All right. Yes, I'm Eric Preston, City Traffic Engineer. And yeah, the ADA transition plan for the public right-of-way. So this presentation will hopefully answer several questions. First, Eric, why are we developing the ADA transition plan? What it is, what is in it, what are future considerations for Kent, and what are the next steps or the schedule for the plan adoption? So the Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law back in July of 1990 and then went into effect in January of 1992. So this has been around for quite a while. And ever since, the law has required that each qualifying jurisdiction with 50 or more employees create a transition plan. So this requirement has been in place for decades, so it's definitely time to update our plan. Not only is it the right thing to do, but it will also likely be required by WashDOT and other funding agencies to be eligible to receive transportation grant funding. So the plan focuses on Title II, which is in the public right-of-way. And so these are things like sidewalks, curb ramps, signals, enhanced pedestrian crossings like the flashing beacons that you see around town. And I'll detail a lot of those details later in this presentation, but the plan does not cover city facilities outside of the right-of-way that fall under Title III. So what is in the plan? The ADA has 4 different required elements that are listed on the left side of your screen. So the first is identifying obstacles that limit accessibility. So we do this by conducting an inventory of our facilities and then analyzing them to determine whether or not each facility is in compliance or not. As you can imagine, this is very time-consuming. Number 2, we have to describe how the facilities will be made accessible. So in other words, non-compliant ramps or driveway approaches or push buttons like you see in the picture there, they need to be rebuilt, or the push buttons need to be relocated or replaced. And so we describe those types of things. Number 3, we have to specify a schedule to compliance and include interim steps. We do this in Chapter 6, which indicates a schedule for completing both the inventory and the construction of corrective measures. Number 4, we have to indicate the city official responsible for implementation. This has already been done with Resolution 2056, which names the ADA coordinator as the city's risk manager, which is Elaine Wu. Also, there's other information that's usually included in an ADA transition plan on the right side of your screen. Public notice and comment period, grievance procedures, internal standards and specifications, and a process to monitor progress. So, what's in the plan? The self-evaluation details what information the city will collect during the inventory, like the dimensions, the slopes, the cross slope, the presence of various elements in and around curb ramps, sidewalks, driveway approaches, as well as signalized and enhanced pedestrian crossings. So it includes a discussion on ADA policies and practices that the city currently has in place. In city planning, we have documents like the transportation element of the comprehensive plan, discusses these, Kent City Code, and other policies and resolutions that reference the Americans with Disabilities Act or accommodating persons with disabilities. We also have engineering standards that the city has in place, like the development and construction standards, as well as state and national standards that we are bound to follow. The plan also reviews practices and procedures, like our grievance procedure, which is covered by Resolution 2065. Request for accommodation, this is already available on the city website. And interim accommodations like neighborhood, ADA on-street parking stalls, or other ADA accommodation requests, typically at intersections. There's also project development and execution, so how we plan to develop and fund projects, and special challenges that are present in the city of Kent. So not only do we have steep hills, but also lots of legacy infrastructure that was not built in the city of Kent at the time, or it was previous, it came before ADA was enacted. So next is the implementation schedule. So our implementation schedule has two parts, the inventory and the correction or construction phase. So our plan for, so you can see there, curb ramps, push buttons, and signals. We anticipate this, where we are planning for it to take 3 years, completing that in 2028. Then driveway crossings. You can see one on the right side of your screen. We estimate that, again, this is just the inventory, at about 5 years, 2030. And then all sidewalks. You can imagine all the sidewalks in the city. 10 to 15 years to accomplish, finishing that in 2035 to 2040. So then comes the construction or the correction phase. The signal timing could take up to 3 years. That is a fairly, yeah, sorry, I won't go into detail. Push button function between 5 and 10 years, and location 10 to 20 years. The reason we have the, I'm separating location is because some of those requires extra poles or extra facilities to get those in the right spot. Driveway crossings, which I just mentioned, this is between 15 and 25 years, if you can imagine all the commercial driveways and residential driveways all around town. Curb ramps and sidewalks. We don't have enough information to estimate this time. And we looked at other jurisdictions around us, like Auburn. They also have a similar timeline. They can't estimate it either. So as we go on, we'll periodically update this plan and monitor our progress, and eventually we'll get a timeline on that. So now for some items that will need future consideration. With so much work to do, there will be lots of work available for summer interns, especially for the inventory stage over the next 3 to 15 years, as we just described. So the city also should consider how to fund ADA construction projects. The city's overlay program already replaces ramps and sometimes even moves push buttons when the paving crosses a marked or unmarked crosswalk and creates an alteration. I'm happy to explain that in more detail if you like, but our overlay program already does a lot of this heavy lifting. We'll continue to look for ADA specific grant opportunities, and large-scale ADA work will need to be programmed. So what are our next steps? So in adopting the ADA transition plan, we'll have a public notice, public comment period between now and May 15. We'll respond to those comments and edit the plan if necessary, and present a final plan to the Committee of the Whole on June 3rd, and then hopefully a resolution for council consideration on June 17th. So during this public notice, we will post the draft plan on the city website, and it's already up on the engage.kentwa.gov website. We'll be reaching out to boards and commissions, advocacy groups, underserved populations, and other stakeholders during this time period. We'll be attending public events and inviting feedback. And then we'll recap those public comments and outreach efforts to you at the Committee of the Whole on June 3rd. So I am available for any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it. This is a long journey, but as we do stuff today, right, we take this into consideration, right? So the AD plan transition where we do new roads or sidewalks, we're doing that today.
Absolutely, yeah. Any new construction project we do.
Okay.
It's to ADA standards.
Okay. Councilmember, any questions? If you may, can't see. Let's start with Tony and then we'll work our way this way. That's okay.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Eric. Great information, especially for the public to be aware of that we have a process for doing this kind of stuff. Councilmember Boyce said it, if we're doing new projects, we make improvements, but if we make changes to existing areas, we are adding this in.
When we make an alteration, we bring those up to standard. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you. Eric, thank you for this presentation. I have a couple of questions. My first is, what needs to be done? What are driveway crossing improvements?
So maybe I'll go back a few slides and try to, whoops, of course I can. All right. It's hard to explain with this picture, but maybe you can see that the slope of the driveway, or I guess you could say the cross slope of the sidewalk, as you're going in and out of the screen, okay? Now think left to right, okay? It's at an angle. It looks like that's all at one angle, which is greater than 2%, more than likely. And so we would have to correct that driveway approach to create a pedestrian access route, okay? Minimum of 4 feet wide, minimum of, or maximum of 2% cross slope. And so that would be rebuilding that driveway approach.
Okay. And then my second question is, you mentioned that people can file grievances or request accommodations. How is that done?
So we have a process on the city website right now. We also get a lot of calls. Kent Works app, there's a million ways to do it. But yeah, there's a very specific form online. That's what the person wants to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilman Larmer?
Yeah, so just a comment. I just want to, thank you for the work we're doing on this and always keeping this front of mind. So I actually grew up with a sister in a wheelchair, and I remember distinctly prior to 1990 when these curb cuts and these slopes weren't addressed, and just I remember the difficulty of my parents getting her around at times. So this just is a project that's close to my heart and very, very important for our community. So thank you.
What year was that, you say?
Prior to 1990.
I'm just
not going to age myself.
All I'm saying is come a long way. That's all I'm getting at, okay? Thank you, Councilman Larmer. Got a question, Councilman Boyd?
I do.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Eric, for your presentation. I have a question. What are we doing about the visually impaired? So what I'm talking about is like your push-button signals. Are we incorporating, or have we already incorporated Braille on the signals?
So Braille specifically is not required. So there are standards for locator tones, vibrotactile buttons. And so, yeah, we have about, I forget the exact number, but about half or more than half of our signals are already completely up to those standards.
Okay.
For those, yeah.
Vibrotactile, is that better than Braille or a comparison to Braille?
Well,
or
it's what they are taught to expect to cross at a signal.
Oh, okay.
And so typically, someone with that challenge has someone who accommodates them. They help them go around their normal day-to-day route, and so they kind of know what's there. And so, and the standards are written in such a way that we have to put those push buttons in the right spot because they're listening, right, for traffic. And so they're going to expect when they come to an intersection, they can detect that audibly, and then they're going to feel around and find that push button where they know it should be.
Okay. So,
and then yes, when they push the button, they'll get a message, and then when it's time to cross, they'll get a vibration.
Okay.
The button will vibrate.
Okay, so that's already in the works, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it is in the works. Yeah, well over half of our signals, or approximately half, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact number, are that way. We've been doing that leading pedestrian interval. You may have heard of LPI. And so when we do that, we upgrade the push buttons to those standards.
Okay, and that ties in with your signal timing, right?
Yes.
And you said it's going to take up to 3 years to correct this or to finish this, the timing?
Correct. There is a lot of measurements that go into that. So if you imagine crossing a street, you need to know the distance between that push button and the bottom of where the ramp meets the street. We need that distance. We need to know the distance crossing the street where they're exposed to traffic. And so walk times for each of those distances. And so making sure that our signal timing works for everybody.
Okay. Whether they walk slow or in a wheelchair or what have you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right, okay, thank you, Eric. You answered a lot, thank you.
Councilman Fincher, any comments from you?
Yes, I just wanted to thank Eric too for a great presentation. And I admire the work that they have done. Like they've said, over half the intersections are already up to standard. A lot of the ones downtown, you can actually hear that audible sound, even when you're sitting in your car at the light. But when you're walking downtown, maybe you're walking from City Hall over to Kent Station. So yeah, I think that they are very much appreciated. having family members who had low vision. I know I certainly appreciate the dots, the audible sounds, and all the work that Kent is doing and has been doing for a number of years. Thank you.
Excellent job. We look forward to more to come. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to our last item. This is one of my favorite, Meekville Meekers update. Chad.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Happy to be here. I want to give a brief update on the Meeker Street progress to date. And we have a lot of work going on this summer out along Kent Elementary School and 64th Avenue South, that intersection. And we have more to come in 2026. So I want to make sure the public was aware of what's been going on and get council up to date. I know we've had a number of comments over the years as our progress has been moving forward, and I want to make sure that everybody just knows where we're at and where we're headed. So hard to believe has been about 10 years ago when we first started talking about changing things up on Meeker, and in that amount of time, 10 years seems like a long time in some respects, but on the other side of the coin, when you're trying to reimagine a cityscape, it's a pretty short amount of time. So shown on the screen here is the work we've done to date and kind of what's in place. Moving from left to right, you see the kind of snake on the left side, that's the Green River. The yellow rectangle there is the Green River Bridge, which we just painted, Meeker Street Bridge. And obviously, council went through the process with the surplus property on the Par 3 golf course, which became the Ethos apartment complex. The former cancer care property site at the southwest corner of 64th and Meeker became what's now Midtown 64, completely redeveloped. Both those sections have the brand new Meeker standards in front. Along the way, we reconstructed the area in front of the golf course driving range, and obviously the driving range itself was reconstructed. So, and then a federal grant that we got between Russell Road and Midtown 64. So, we can get from the river all the way to 64th Avenue South, and we're on the brand new standards. So great progress there. We also were hearing rumblings within that section that there might be some development potential on the side of the road where the former Shell station was, and right next to the Country Burger site where that's been rebuilt. That could develop into something in the, we're hoping, near term. So that would really help the north side of the street as well. So again, grant funds moving to the east at 64th and Kent Elementary. That work is underway and moving along. I've got a picture of it coming up. We have state funds for Restaurant Row, which we hope to get under construction about 2 years out, 2 to 3 years out. And then we have 2 different federal grants, which I'll discuss in more detail here in a bit, but between Washington Avenue and Interurban to reconstruct that section in 2026. And then coming in 2028 is a section from the Interurban to 6th Avenue. So we're going to end up making it from the river, on the south side, from the river all the way to the Union Pacific tracks by the end of the decade. And in that time, we're hoping that we'll see redevelopment, not only on the site I talked about where the Shell station is, but the Big Lots shopping center there. There's a potential there that we're hearing a little bit of rumblings about. And of course, the Naden, the city-owned Naden site, will be reconstructing that section, which should help pave the way for development in that area. So again, really excited to have the Meeker Street Bridge repainted last summer. The painting took longer than we'd anticipated. The deck did not get done last summer. So remember, we closed it with the anticipation that we would have it painted and the bridge deck reconstructed by the time fall came around. That did not happen. We got it painted, but the deck still needs to be worked on. So we're looking at several weekend closures this summer to get that work done. And we're working with a contractor right now to schedule those. So we don't have exact dates, but we'll make sure to come back with those dates, and we'll have those on Drive Kent as well.
Yeah, what is it? We said the deck. What is that again?
Thank you. Sorry about that. The road surface, the actual driving surface and walking surface of the bridge itself. So
on the side of the bridge,
right under, like what you're actually driving on as you cross the bridge.
Okay.
That concrete that you're driving over. In fact, Councilmember Fincher and I walked that. Gosh, it's been about 6 months ago or so now, 8 months ago. And if you, as you're walking on it, you can actually see bits of the rebar, reinforcing bar that's in the pavement that have been exposed. It's actually shiny because it's been exposed to traffic for years, so the tires keep it shiny. The good news was both the steel that's been repainted and then the steel that's in the bridge deck, they're shown to be in good shape. So the bridge paint itself, we're in really good shape. The deck itself, we just need to get back on it and get the new surface down. So it'll be nice and smooth once we get there.
How many weekend you're looking at, you think, having that closed to get that done?
We're looking at 4 to 5 weekends, but we're hoping they can do a little bit faster. That's what we're in negotiation with the.
Consistent weekend? Are you going to spread them out? Or have you thought
Maybe
about it?
spread out. And we're talking with them about that. It also will be weather dependent.
Yep.
They need the weather for that work, so it'll be in the middle of summer. Good news is we understand that when the bridge was closed last summer, we were very concerned working with Parks Department that we were going to impact the parks business at the golf course and the driving range, and they ended up having a very good year last year. So we're hopeful that, again, the golfers really, really, really want to get there, and they'll just work around the bridge closures.
Okay, thank you.
Here's the work out in front of 64th and Meeker. There's pictures from last week. Again, it's busy out there, we'll say. They're working very quickly. This is our contractor, Gary Merlino. And again, this section, I was here when we went from 3 lanes to 5 lanes. And now we're building it to go back down to 2 lanes and a 3rd lane in the middle, but it largely won't be used. It'll be just an extra lane. So interesting in the span of a career to go, hey, they've got to widen the street. Let's narrow the street. But it's nice, in this case, largely paid for through those 2 different grants that we got from PSRC and from Washington State Department of Transportation. So 2.1 million grant was, I think, was the Transportation Alternatives Program in front of the elementary school, and I think we had about $1.5 million or 1.8 for the intersection itself, if I remember right correctly, Kelly. So 2 grants we put together, and we put those out as one contract. So very excited to see that going. If you have questions about it, you can please send folks our way. But yeah, the intention is to slow traffic down through there and make it a walkable area. The folks going to back and forth, parents at the elementary school are very excited to see this going in. It'll also shorten the crossing distance at the intersection of 64th and Meeker. And then Carl Maloney earlier mentioned the National Highway System grant. We got to repave 64th. That work starts at Meeker. So it goes up 64th from Meeker to James, and then along James from 64th to Washington Avenue. We're going to repave all of that. And the section along 64th, if you travel it today, is 4 travel lanes. We're going to reduce that to 3 travel lanes, and we'll have some shoulders there. So for the kids that walk back and forth to school, which is, I think, something, maybe like 80-some-odd% of that school walks. They're going to have a little more distance between them and the traffic while they're walking along 64th with a very small impact on the capacity of 64th. So excited to see that one coming through. That's the next summer project. And then also next summer, again, 2 different grants here to do the work from Washington Avenue. That's what's on the left side of the depiction here. And then over to the right side, that's the interurban on the very right side. You'll notice just in the middle is 167, the very wide road. And then just to the right side of that, the little circle. If you leave here today, we're going to have a roundabout at the intersection of Lincoln and Meeker, which today is just a stop sign.
Yep.
Very hard to get out of there. So that's going to help 2 things. Folks will still be able to get through there at a good clip. Roundabouts, we've got a number of them now, and they're working very effectively. 4th and Willis, I think, is a great example. This will help calm traffic as we're coming around that intersection, and also will help to create better throughput from Meeker for folks who are coming off of our new development. That big rectangle on the right side there is Madison Plaza, which is the new apartment complex. Then we also have Ovation on Meeker, the senior living complex. So we have more intensive housing coming in the area. And we're going to want more and better access.
Yep.
So this will help slow people down and also provide better access to downtown. So very much looking forward to this. On the other side of the coin, it will be very impactful to construct this with the work under 167 and the roundabout. We're looking at having a significant impact to downtown access for much of 2026. We're going to keep a lane open eastbound into downtown so that folks coming down from the West Hill and trying to get downtown can get into downtown. Getting out of downtown, they're either going to use Willis, James, or go up to 228th and going back westbound. But we can't maintain two-way traffic through that area for the majority of construction. So wanted to make sure we were in front of council talking about it now, and we'll start messaging it to the public. It's going to be difficult getting through there for much of 2026. And we're trying to provide more of a context and a vision for 2027, when it looks really nice and it's going to be fun to walk there. But the driving part of it's not going to be a lot of fun there while we're under construction. Any questions on that?
Good work.
Okay, moving on. In other good news, the Reith Road roundabouts, and I think another example, people are going to, I think, really appreciate these. We're going to be paving these here in the month of April, weather permitting, and then we've got to wait 28 days or so, also depending on weather, and we'll be able to stripe this area. So the two roundabouts on Reith Road, if you haven't been through them, they've been open, but just with the first lift of asphalt. We'll finish the asphalt and then another, say, 4 or 5 weeks later, finish the pavement marking. So late May, early June, we're looking at ribbon cutting to open those up and have them operating at full capacity, both at Lake Fenwick Road and then up on top of the hill at southeast 253rd Street, so south 253rd Street. But this, I think, is going to be really welcomed by the West Hill. We're super excited to have them open. I know I've talked to council about this before. These were started with requests from the community out there going back about 10 or 15 years, and it helped focus our efforts, and just wanted to make a big shout out to Transportation Improvement Board. They came on board and helped put the funding together for this, and having this under construction and then almost done is super exciting for us. So look forward to it.
Councilmember Fincher, have you used the roundabout yet?
Oh, many times, Councilmember, many times. Well, I am a proponent of traffic circles all over the city.
Okay, all right, okay, good, thank you.
So just want to give that update. We're excited where we're at so far. I want to make sure folks knew what was coming up. But again, I think Mayor mentioned it in the State of the City address. We're just over $23 million in grants so far to get that work done. And it's been a very successful visioning from the council and then execution by staff to get this thing going and getting ready to get done.
I'm gonna start calling you OPM because you are good at spending other people's money.
Do like doing that.
Hey, this is good stuff, really good stuff. Thank you so much. Any question, guys, for Chad? Councilman Fincher, you okay?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else? You good? Okay, good job. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good report out. Okay, council member, we are gonna take a break here until 7 o'clock, so we adjourn.